and welcome to the BA Project Podcast. I am delighted to be joined by my co-hosts, Catherine Moore and Christina Mathieu. Catherine, say hi.
Hi, I'm Catherine.
Catherine, we've known each other for the best part of a decade. Are you a little bit nervous about the amount of stories that we're able to commit to the internet?
Absolutely. Is there a way of me putting you on mute?
Absolutely not.
In live and on podcast.
That's a bit harsh. We haven't even started yet. And of course, we have the incredible, enigmatic, charming, Star Wars loving, requirement writing Christina Mathieu. Hi, Christina.
Hi. That was a big intro. Wow. I'll remember that.
I tried to define you in one sentence. It was really hard.
It's a good job.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. So let's talk about today's episode. Episode 1, 5 things you should know before starting a career in business analysis. So today, each of us have prepared a list of 3 tips for would-be BAs, and we'll be counting them down one by one, and then deciding our ultimate top 5 together, top 5 tips that a BA should know before starting their career. So this is going to be a mix of practical advice, personal anecdotes, maybe a few cautionary tales as well, all designed to help people navigate that path of becoming a BA. So, Catherine, do you want to get us started? Maybe talk us through your top 3?
Yeah, sure. So my top 3, I suppose I kind of came at this thinking about what I like any new starter to know, what I wish I had maybe focused on a little bit more at the start of my career. So number 1 is all experience is good experience. So I think this is really important, especially when you consider our backgrounds. All of us have very different backgrounds. The people that we've come across where we've worked and the people that we really appreciate in our roles all come from very different backgrounds. So I suppose this kind of, to me, means no matter where you're coming from, BA is always an option for you. That things that you've done in the past are always going to be, it's always going to be, you're going to find a way to make it relevant to your BA life and your BA skills. And I just think it's really important to know that all experience is good experience. So that's my number 1. Number 2, I think the most important part of your BA life and things that will set you up for success are task breakdown and being good at small organizational skills. So I think it's really important not to focus on big projects, technical projects, or transformational projects because they seem very overwhelming and they seem very big. To me, you can be a really successful and a really great BA once you have really small kind of abilities to kind of tackle task breakdown and have good organizational skills. So I think that's really important. And I think if you can get it right at the very start, it'll stand with you throughout your career. And number 3, soft skills are skills. So probably kind of ties in with all experience is good experience, but I see it underplayed so often that people don't realize that being friendly, being empathetic, being, conversational or friend, any of those kind of things that maybe you think of as not being, I don't know, they're not hard skills. So it's hard to maybe promote them a little bit. So I think it's really important that if you're going for an interview or if you're starting off in your career, not to underplay that, don't downplay what you bring, what your personality is. And I think it's really important to know that soft skills are skills. I think there was a lot of my career where I felt like I couldn't maybe have my own personality. I needed to have that kind of persona. And I think as you get older and as you have a little bit more experience, you realize that actually what resonates with people is you being personable, you actually having your mistakes or your little mess ups or whatever it is. But and I think it's nice, it's charming. It makes people kind of align with you. So soft skills are skills. So they're my top 3.
I love that. That should be the name of a book. Soft skills are skills.
Well, don't tempt me.
You plagiarized it, haven't you?
And now if you go into our blog on the BA project,
you buy it for €99. No, I completely agree. soft skills are so underrated and undervalued, and it's such a massive part of the role. And those interpersonal relationships, being able to go into an organization and get buy-in from the customer is so hard, and it's always on the BA to do that in the first few weeks, and it doesn't always happen.
I think
For that.
Yeah, I think as well, like if you're in an industry like a tech industry where you're sitting side by side with people who have massive amount of certifications, they're probably upkeeping their technical skills with tests and certs and diplomas and all these kind of things, and sometimes there is a little bit of, oh God, should I be doing that, or maybe there's something that I'm missing. So I think as that kind of business element, we tend to look at that, especially if you're in a technical industry. But I think you look at that and you kind of maybe feel like you're not doing something right. Whereas, so to me, it's just being able to stand over those skills and promote them and be proud of them as well.
Christine, anything stand out to you from those three?
I would say some of those sort of segue into the things that are important to me as well. And as Catherine said, like we all come from very different backgrounds. So there's a couple of those that definitely I sort of wanted to expand upon with the three that I have. Can I do that? Go on to my topics? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So like one of the first things I wish that I would have known before coming into this career was knowing that we as business analysts are welcome in a technical space without needing those technical skills. So Catherine's talked about the soft skills there that are so important, and that's I'd say traditionally something that we as business analysts bring. We tend to have those personalities that we are a bit richer in those softer skills, and that's what's absolutely needed from our roles. But I definitely had the fear of coming into my current role, because then I'd have to say that I work in IT, and that kind of felt like a lie to me.
You're a nerd.
Yeah, like it's really hard to describe. If you meet somebody on a night out, it's hard to describe what you do for a job. It's not a one sentence. It's not a one word. If you were to say I'm a business analyst, what does that mean? So. But equally, I was afraid to say that I work in IT, because I felt as though, well, I don't, because I'm not a techie. I don't have those technical skills. But without requirements, there is no product, there is no solution. And I definitely feel as though we're needed and accepted in those technical conversations, although we can't build it in the way that our .NET developers can do that. We still have important skills that help them understand what the build or what the solution should be. So that was something that I definitely think put me off coming into this career sooner, was the felt that because I didn't have those technical skills, then I wouldn't be welcome. But that's absolutely not the case at all. So that's the first thing that's important to me. And as I said, that kind of moves on from Catherine's soft skills and sort of solidifies the fact that they are absolutely a skill set that's vital in this role. The second one that I have is probably most personal to me, and it's that this career is absolutely accessible without third level education. So again, it was something I was, I suppose, a little embarrassed of, that I don't have a third level education, but it just, at that age, school was not for me. It just was not the thing that I wanted to do. And I thought that it would mean I would never have the opportunity to be in this space, work in IT or be a business analyst or anything, because I just thought that everything required third level education. I do think times have moved on now, and employers are moving out of that as a requirement. Obviously, there's certain roles, like if you're going to be a doctor, a nurse or whatever, you've got to have the appropriate degree or the appropriate education. But I think that there's so many really good people that have been passed over because they don't meet that entry criteria of third level education when it comes to our role. We don't have to have, sorry, go ahead, Catherine.
I think it's funny as well, because and I'm pretty sure you guys would be the same. But if somebody had told, like, I didn't know jobs like this existed,
No.
when you're in school. So I think it's so important for podcasts like this, for projects like this, where you're promoting something that I don't think people realize is such a good career, and it's so rewarding, and you can be really successful. And as you said, Christina, it's not for all of us. It hasn't been. It was a real something that kind of happened naturally, which is nice. So it would be great to see more people getting involved in this. From school.
I know you've done so much work as well, Christina, with visiting kids and going to schools, and especially around girls in STEM. And you don't see the benefit of that now, but we'll hopefully see that in the next few years as they, like I don't know, they look into careers in tech. And you make a good point there about being welcome in the tech space. I think it's actually crucial that tech companies have non-tech people in roles, in various roles across the board, sales, operations, marketing, that you have people who don't see it through a technical lens, because that it gets the best result for a user, who are ultimately your client. So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I think it just puts a different spin on user experience. The way that, you know, when you're building something, the way that you think about it is get this thing to work. But just because it works doesn't mean that it's user friendly. And I feel as though that's what we as non-technical people bring. We bring that sort of outside peer review to say, okay, that might technically work, but am I actually able to do that in my day-to-day? No, it's not practical. So not having that sort of technical sort of focus really helps us build better products for our customers. And coming back to what you mentioned there, Drew, about me sort of outreaching in the community, that's because I wish somebody would have done that for me when I was 14, 15, 16. I was realizing that I really struggled with education, and I was panicking, thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, with my career. And I wish there would have been someone like me that said, look, there is an alternative route here, and you can still end up in a job where you're surrounded by highly educated people, but you bring a different flavor and a different variety to be able to sort of round out the delivery, I suppose. So that's why that's something I'm super passionate about. And for any sort of prospective BAs to know that just because you didn't go and get your degree when you were younger, that doesn't mean that this isn't an accessible role for you. Go ahead.
Can I? Sorry, I'm interrupting everybody. And I think as well, like if you look at that and you look, the being welcome in technical space and people being afraid to take those steps in a tech company, it's no wonder we see so many BAs suffer from imposter syndrome. It's across the board. The amount of people that I've met inside the organization we're in and other organizations in the wider community that have that imposter syndrome even throughout their career, and it's almost like that technical deficiency hangs over them. But I think it's knowing that that's okay and that it's normal. Thank you. Yeah.
And the last one I have then, so my number 3 is it's not a negative one. It might come across as negative, but it's just I absolutely know it now, but going into this role, I didn't expect to have other outputs required of me as part of a delivery team on top of what we do as a BA. So again, it comes back to what Catherine mentioned about soft skills. Sometimes we have to put our hand to tasks or conversations or sort of relationship management, to things that maybe fall outside of our standard remit, but it's because we're capable. We have sort of the soft skills to be able to do that. And I've found that certainly where we work, that there's times where we are a bit of a glue to the rest of the delivery team. We help pull it together, working very closely alongside our project managers. But there's just a little bit more. And sometimes it can be a bit of a drain, because you've got your own outputs you do, you've got your user stories, your process maps, everything else that's our bread and butter. But then there's little tasks that we've got to do on top of that as well. And it's all a learning experience. It's things that we shouldn't say no to, you know, as long as we have the capacity to be able to do them. It helps us be a more rounded and I suppose a better BA all in all. But that's just something that I didn't know at all, and it just, as I do this job more, I learn it, and I know that it's really important to do, but it was just something that I wasn't aware of starting out in my career.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and as well, like, you know, kind of tying in with the all experience is good experience. I think when you're actually, even when you're in your career as a BA, all experience is good experience when you're there, and like that, there's been so many times where I'm probably doing a lot more of the customer relationship management rather than the PM, but that's great for me. That's a good experience. And I think, is like, as you said, you kind of have to take those things and take those opportunities and those challenges, because yes, they're outside of what you feel is your remit, but at the end of the day, you're going to become better at what you do for those small things. So it's really important. And I suppose it's not, I think sometimes, well, potentially when you come into this role, you can think that you're getting a lot of things just thrown at you, and maybe it feels a little bit like a donkey work kind of just thrown at you, but actually
thrown at you.
But yeah, and I think it's really important to just kind of take those opportunities and take those challenges rather than just dismiss them as not being or not relevant. So yeah.
They're all great. I actually feel a little embarrassed going through mine because they were all so good. My number 3 sounds really simple and obvious, and on the face of it, it is. And number 3 for me is using templates. I know it sounds silly and obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me. And I think any new BA, prospective BA, graduate BA, somebody who's transitioning into BA, they just need to lean on the work that somebody else has done with a tried and tested tool. And it could be as simple as a template for documenting minutes, a questionnaire, or an elicitation plan, a workshop schedule. And it's not, you don't need like a physics degree to be able to create one of those documents. But that's an artifact that someone in your team has created. They put it in front of a customer. They said, yeah, it works. Let's turn it into a template so we can share it with everybody else. And not enough people use that as their starting point. So time and again, not just BAs, I've seen people in all project roles go back to scratch with documentation, and I don't understand why. So that would be a huge tip for me, is make use of a document repository that's there, or even use, if you've access to the IABA library of documentation, Google elicitation plan, anything to use as a starting point.
But hide the tab where you're Googling stuff.
Yes,
you're sharing your screen.
I've been burned with ChatGPT before, so yeah, be careful. So yeah, that's one for me, is using templates. Second one is peer reviewing all of your customer outputs at the start. So the amount of iterative feedback that I got earlier on, I should have learned. For the amount of emails I got returned saying, oh, you missed this, that was a typo, don't understand what that is. I should have just given it to one of you guys or somebody in the team that had fresh eyes. And they don't need to be what could be perceived as a better BA or a more experienced BA, but just another BA who's coming at it, who hasn't been sitting with those requirements for 3 months. I still get documentation peer reviewed all the time because now I know better. But if I could go back to my first couple of projects, my first year, I'd be having those deliverables, those key customer artifacts peer reviewed. Just, it builds confidence with the customer, it builds trust with the customer, and it's just more comfort, and it's a safety net for yourself that you've hit the mark. And then number 1 for me is something that took me a while to understand, and I still see it with BAs who've been doing it for years, is getting clarification on expectations as soon as you can. And then I have a second part, so I have a part B for that. And that's getting your...
I don't know if you're allowed that.
Really, it's a sneaky one. Yeah. Well, I'm controlling the record button, so I think I can. So, part B of my number 1 is getting that clarification in writing. So it's one thing to speak to the PM and the techie and have that round table internal kickoff discussion where you talk about your roles, your responsibilities, your outputs. You talk about the contract with the customer. If there's a statement of work, you just walk out of that room with that clarity that, yeah, I know what I'm doing. They know what they're doing. You know where that line in the sand is. You also, if you think of that Venn diagram of your 3 project roles of BA and PM and techie, it's a Venn diagram, and you're going to have shared responsibilities. And it's great to understand what that is too when you're walking out of that room.
Yeah.
However, you should absolutely get that minuted, get it in an email, get it in agreement. So in 6 months' time, if it all hits the fan, you have that comfort that you signed up to it, I signed up to it, the customer signed up to it. That was the agreement. And I know it sounds a bit cynical having to do that, but it's just smart. And if you're working on behalf of an organization where you're a full-time employee or you're a contractor, it's just as important to just get that in writing, what the expectations are, because sometimes priorities change for a customer, let's say, and maybe sometimes they, at the mobilization phase, there's so much going on that they genuinely don't remember having that discussion with you about expectations or outputs. There might not be a statement of work. So just get it in writing. This is what I expect from you. This is what you expect from me.
The other thing around that, which I have definitely struggled with, and I still kind of do, is sending draft versions to make sure that that the expectation is aligned. Yeah. I think there's sometimes a tendency to say, well, I can't send it on until it's perfect or until I feel like it's right. And that's a nervousness, especially when you're starting off in a new job or a new company. Is there that nervousness? But I would like a part of that. I would say, don't be afraid to send draft versions either, to just kind of say, this is what I feel you wanted from what you said. What way does this sit with you, and what would you add to it? And that way that person is kind of engaging with you and even maybe managing their own expectations as well. So yeah, it's a good one.
And I think even those little water cooler moments that we have as well, we're all getting back into the office after being in our sort of remote working, but we have those water cooler conversations, and often about projects or deliverables or things like that. And like you said, Drew, it sounds a bit, I don't know, maybe not the nicest thing to have to do, but to protect ourselves, protect our customers, protect everybody, it's good to just pop a wee message or an email to that person to say, look, as per conversation, we've agreed X, Y, and Z, because people forget. We forget, the people we're talking to forget. And it's just good to be able to document those things. And that's something that I'm actively working on now, because I spend every working day in the office, and it's very easy to have those flippant conversations, you might say. Yeah. But I'm getting better at documenting those, just so that we're all aligned with what expectations are.
And expectations change, and in contracts, the priorities change, and sometimes a second contract or a change request is required to meet those changing expectations. But if we don't have that baseline of what the original expectation was, it's really hard to quantify what's additional. So I know it does sound cynical, but the customer will benefit from it, and you'll benefit from it as a BA, just having that safety net. So that's top three for three of us. Shall we step through what our top five is and try and agree the top five between us? Yeah.
Getting the three of us to agree, that's interesting.
I know. So again, 5-hour podcast. So I'm going to be using the power of Miro for this. Favorite.
And Drew has already put his top three in as
Actually, yeah. I've put everyone's top three in because I'm a kind person like that. So
thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So I've gone through here. So we've got Catherine, all experience is good experience, being organized and breaking down task management into small bite-sized chunks. Excuse me. Soft skills, our skills, love that. Christina, being welcome in a technical space without needing those technical skills and talking from your own experience there, and being accessible. This role being accessible without third level education. And do you know what? And maybe I'm a perfect example of this. I would not have even thought about that. I love that you brought that up, and it's so true. When we look at hiring and when we bring new BAs into our practice, I don't look at what university they went to. I don't look to make sure they studied business analysis in college. I didn't study it. Catherine didn't study it. So it's a really, really important one. And then number 3, high expectation outputs and being a glue for that delivery team. Myself was using templates, getting your customer documents, outputs peer reviewed, and finally getting that clarification and getting it in writing. So there are 9 items. Between these guys, let's choose a number 5. Number 5. Well, before we go to 5, do you think we should cut out the 4 that we're not taking?
Oh yeah, let's pick the 5. Yeah. Pick a 5 first.
So of mine, the one that I think that I'm happy to cut is the high expectations. That's something that just, we don't need to know that before we enter the job. It's just something that I learned after getting into the role. But I'm happy to cut that one as not being one of the top 5.
High expectations. Gotcha.
I would like to include the third level, because you wouldn't be having these conversations if you had already written yourself out of the race. So I think that's really important. So yeah.
I think so.
And I think if we were an organization that did have that as a prerequisite, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't know you two. So I think, that's super important for me.
Adding this guy in?
Yep.
And I think soft skills.
Yeah.
You don't automatically think that when you think of role in a tech job. And I assume that would be a big misconception. We could probably get rid of my number 3, because that's something that we would tell our direct reports, any BAs into the practice, we would bring them through our document repository, which we push people towards. I don't know if it's something that you would make or break you applying for a job as a BA, but it's definitely something that can help once you start.
Yeah. But I think peer review is good to take in, because it's really important at intro level to BA, but also I think as a constant reminder as well that, you know, sometimes, you just need an extra layer of feedback. Ooh, we've got 4, so one more.
One more. I didn't realize you guys probably can't see these. Is that better?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. So one more. So we've got all experience is good experience, being welcome in the technical space without needing technical skills or clarifying what's expected.
Yeah.
Can I tell you what I choose?
Yeah, go ahead. You go first. Sure.
I would choose this one.
Great minds. Because I was just about to mention, if we're thinking of who we're trying to target here, or what the purpose of the objective is, it's getting people into this role, regardless of mind talk that they might have about potential blockers.
Okay. What do you think? Would you choose all experience or output before this?
Me, I actually think that kind of all experience ties in with it, so I think it's a good one. And I think the clarify is probably not some. It is good to know, but as you said, it's kind of something that you can kind of
Once you're in,
get used to. Yeah, once you're in.
Yeah.
So yeah, happy with that.
So go with this one.
Yeah.
You got our top 5.
Yeah,
I'm not hurt that I only got one in there. It's absolutely fine.
Well, you are out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's look at number 5 then. Ooh, this is going to be tough. Number 5. Gosh, like these are all important, but before you start your career, what is least important of the important? If you know what I mean, it's probably peer reviewed, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so.
5. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Because that's not going to be a blocker. Do you enter in the space? It's something you've got to do as soon as you get into the space, but not a blocker.
Yeah. And I think the same with being organized and task management is probably not a blocker. You know, it's kind of something that is a good thing to target when you're in the door, but it's not going to be a blocker.
Look at us. Oh my gosh.
God.
I'm so proud of us. The wheels are going to fall off the wagon now, watch. Okay.
I think the next one is welcome in a technical space.
You reckon?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
In technical space. Okay. Number 3. Ooh.
Because you know what? Like, I do think as a educational society, we're getting better at that one, because there are degrees targeted towards our role now. A guy that used to work with us, who doesn't work with us anymore, he studied business analysis in New Zealand. So it's actually a degree there, which is amazing to see. I think, like, back in my day, for sure, it definitely was not a thing. And then here in Belfast, we have the business and IT, which again, nice segue into business analysis. So we're getting better at having courses that are tailored towards our role.
Yeah, and for the last couple of years, I know down south, in Ireland, we've had business analysis as a critical skill. So there's been avenues for people to come from abroad to work here, through the need in the industry for BAs. So it's definitely growing. Yeah, I probably would have had this one up higher, to be honest.
Okay.
But I'm happy that it's top 3. But yeah, I would have had it higher. So number 2, being accessible without 3rd level education or soft skills are skills.
Battle of the gals now.
Battle of the gals. I don't know, because I do think. Look, I do think number 1 is probably accessibility without 3rd level education, because I think that when you write yourself off at such a young age and you don't know, like, I think in school I really just thought it was like solicitor, doctor, nurse. Like, I think I knew about four for careers. So to me, if we can try and target more skills, people at a younger age, especially girls getting into STEM, to me that is number one, because that is where you start to form an opinion about what's doable in your life. And I think, it would just be awful for people to write themselves off just because they don't like school and they don't see themselves going to university.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the soft skills are a very close second, because again, some people write themselves off for being in a room full of techies just because they're a chatty Cathy. That was me. I'm thinking nobody's going to want to listen to me all day. But those soft skills, nobody does want to listen to me all day. Yeah.
Chatty Cathy. Christinaism number 1, episode 1. Add it to the list. It's going on the mural board.
But it's such a close second to it, because people could write themselves off because they think, God, no, I'm a real good chatter, but what else can I offer? So the two of them are very, very close and go hand in hand for sure.
Wow,
that's great. I think that's a strong top 5.
Yeah,
reviewing the customer outputs at the start, being organized and breaking down your task management. Number 3, welcome in a technical space. Number 2, soft skills. Number 1, accessible without third level education. I'm happy with that list.
Look at us, agreement queens.
Wow. Hopefully it's that easy in episode 2, 3, 4, and 5 as well. Okay, so moving on from our top 5, I, in advance of this episode, went out to some graduate BAs that I know, people who've gone through BA Academy, and I asked them to talk to me a little bit about common misconceptions that they would have had before entering into a career of business analysis. Excuse me. And it doesn't need tons of discussion, but I thought it was interesting. And there were some things there that for sure I had experience with as well. So just to give you some insight as to what their feedback to me was, some of them said that they were expected to encounter data analysis more. They expected more technical elements in the role. They didn't realize where the BA role ended and where the tech role started. They also assumed there was more technical scope for their role. Another one that I thought was interesting was the different types of work that the BA was responsible for, that it wasn't only requirements gathering for digital transformations, but it was also being involved in tender work, pre-sales, supporting, identifying new opportunities, and also in project, finding new scopes. That's not a word. Finding new scope that can be brought in under change control. And the planning, preparation prior to a project commencing as well was a surprise to one. System training being part of the BA role, I thought that was really interesting, because we've seen that with a few people that are new to the BA career. And we all understand that the benefit of taking on that training role, because there's so many transferable skills. Another had the misconception that the business analyst role would revolve around statistical data and technical aspects. I thought that was an interesting one. And that same BA said that after learning and practicing from experienced BAs that they work with, their line manager, they've come to realize more about stakeholder management, effective communication, and bridging the gap between business needs and technology solutions. I love that answer. And that same BA said they did, as they delved into that role, they began discovering the connection between people, clients, and systems. So yeah, it's interesting to see those misconceptions and where that group of graduate BAs have gotten to as consultants and would-be consultants. And demystifying it on their own.
Yeah, so, and I think that kind of comes back to a lot of what we have in the top 5, because when those graduates started, they have no idea. They haven't come across this probably in their, in their school or in their college, so it's all brand new and they don't really know what to expect. So it's good to hear that in some ways it has, changed the idea of what they feel, and hopefully they made them more comfortable in what they sought to do.
And even in such a short space of time, like Drew, you mentioned there that some of them had sort of defunct their own sort of misconceptions. We've had our graduates for quite, in the terms of our careers, we've had them for a short period of time. And it's great to see that sort of the support that they've had around them has helped them demystify it, and help them progress on.
Yeah, proud parents.
Yeah.
So to wrap up today, I wanted to pose just a bonus question to each of you guys, one each, if that's all right. And it requires you to be a little introspective. So don't feel you need to give a one-word answer. you can talk us through it. So you're going to get one each. Catherine, I am going to start with you, if that's okay. So your bonus question, 20 points. What do you think is the biggest obstacle for a new BA when getting started?
The biggest obstacle to get started. Maybe this is probably very introspective. But
solo shot for that. Go on.
Oh no. I think you're probably. But I don't want to be too cliche, but I think you're probably your own biggest obstacle. Like if you don't tap into resources that are online, if you try and do everything yourself, if you try and go at it alone in a way, you're probably going to become very overwhelmed. And I think a lot of the obstacles for BAs are things that we've put up just because of ourselves, because we forget that we can actually ask questions, and it's not a bad thing to ask a lot of questions. We can use templates or reuse templates, and that's not a bad thing either. That doesn't mean that you're cutting corners. It just means you're utilizing your time effectively. So I think a lot of it is maybe having the confidence to do those parts of the role early on, stand over it, and have the confidence to almost kind of like just use what everybody else is using and utilizing what has already been done. So I think a lot of our obstacles are kind of stuff that we already do with ourselves. And as you said earlier on, imposter syndrome for BAs is such a big obstacle, I think, for most of us. Most of the confidence is kind of not great, especially starting out. So I think a lot of that is just trying to get as much experience with presenting, get as much experience with asking questions, get feedback often, and remove those obstacles that I think you kind of put up with yourself.
Sorry, bonus question. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you think another obstacle might be the level of distraction you'd have by the grand piano in your living room? Is that an obstacle?
I think it's a distraction for you guys, you peasants.
This is your winter cabin in Aspen.
I'm just so used to this beautiful home that I live in. That I swear is not glitching.
Thank you so much. So, Christina, are you ready for yours?
Is it easier than Catherine's? I think that was a pretty tough one. Catherine did a good job of answering that one off the hook.
Probably the same level of complexity, I'm afraid. And you're not allowed to ask me any questions. So yeah, that's the rule.
At least you're treating me and Catherine fairly. You're a double standards kind of man, but at least you're treating us both fairly.
Yeah. So Christina, if you could go back to your first project, what would you change about your approach?
Oh, cast my mind back. If I could go back to my first project, I would get over myself and be okay with asking for help. If I think of the first project that I went on, I was thrown into a delivery for an industry that I'd never worked on. I had no experience of it. And that's something that we as BAs, we need to learn fast about our clients and our processes in industries that we don't have experience on. And that's what happened on my first project. And I was thrown into a work stream where I was faking it until I made it, or maybe didn't make it in there. But I wish I would have just asked someone for help, because I know there was other people in the organization that did know that industry. And I was fine with the tasks that I do as a business analyst. I wasn't worried about being able to output process maps or output my user stories and things like that. But it was the industry that I really struggled with, and I should have just asked for help. And now when I look back at that, it was because I was new to the organization. I was trying to impress. I was the first business analyst in our Belfast office, and I just sort of I didn't want it to look as though it was a bad choice or that I wasn't capable of doing it. But in hindsight, I would have had much better outputs, much quicker outputs, and less iterations on my outputs if I would have just asked for help. And that's something I'm very, very comfortable with doing now. Like, as you said, Drew, you still get peer review on a lot of your outputs. I'm very comfortable to ask for help now, but younger Christina just wasn't so confident and wasn't so comfortable and was afraid of looking silly. So that's something I would change. If I look back at that work stream that I worked on, I would have loved to have been able to do it so much better. If I could just tell my now self to just act, if I could tell my previous self to act like my now self, I know I would have had a better output on that one. But it still went live and it's operational, so it's fine. It's all worked out for the best, but it just would have been a little less painful for me personally if I'd have just gotten over myself.
Christina, the amount of scenarios in my life, if I could tell my younger self what I know now. So that is great advice, not just for business analysis, life observation. No, thank you. Thank you both so much. So that's it. That's it for the BA Project, episode 1. But before we wrap up, I wanted to ask my kind co-hosts if they have any parting words for us. Catherine, end of episode 1.
No, I hope that's been useful. And yeah, see you next time.
Christina, episode 1 in the bag.
Exciting stuff. I'm glad that there's something like this available. Again, I would have loved my much younger self to have been able to find something like this and maybe help me get into the role that I'm in now a little bit quicker. So just hope that we can reach the right people. And see you next time.
Agreed. Thank you both for your encouragement, your support, and agreeing to let me pick your brain every week. You promised, so no take-backs. And I think more impressive considering I know how busy both of you guys are, so thank you so much. That's us. We'll see you again next week. And in the meantime, please comment below. Tell us what your top tips are for BA starting out. Did you agree with our list? Do you have tips that you think are more important? Tell us in the comments and tell us why they're more important. And if you want to get in touch with us, if you want to write for the BA Project, learn more about what we do, or just get a steer on how to get started as a BA, you can find us at thebaproject.ie or thebaproject.co.uk, or simply at the BA Project across all social media. Thanks for watching and take care of yourself.